6 barrels, a single hand crank, 300 rounds per minute. In 1862, while the bloodiest war in American history raged, a physician named Richard Gatling patented a weapon unlike anything the world had ever seen. He believed it would make armies so small that war itself might become unthinkable. Instead, the Gatling gun ushered in an age of industrialized killing the battlefield would never recover from. In the decade before the Gatling gun's birth, America's cities throbbed with the pulse of steam and steel. Factory whistles pierced the dawn. Inside, rows of lathes spun under the glow of oil lamps, each machine tool shaping iron to tolerances a human hand could barely match. The new gospel of interchangeable parts had swept the nation's workshops, from Springfield's armories to the smallest blacksmith's shed. Here, a rifle's lock or a locomotive's wheel could be reproduced by the hundred, each one exact, each one ready for war or peace. Richard Jordan Gatling grew up in this world of restless invention. Born in 1818 on a North Carolina plantation, he watched his father and brothers sketching improvements for cotton planters by candlelight. The family's talk was of gears and levers, of harvests won or lost by the ingenuity of a single hand. By 21, Gatling had built a screw propeller for riverboats, only to lose the patent race to John Ericsson. Undeterred, he turned to agriculture, filing patents for rice seeders and wheat drills, machines that could sow an entire field in the time it once took a farmer to walk its length. In 1850, Gatling earned a medical degree in Ohio, driven by the loss of 3 sisters to illness. But the laboratory called louder than the clinic. He saw in the fever wards and the battlefields a single truth. Disease killed far more soldiers than bullets ever could. If a machine could do the work of 100 men, perhaps fewer would die from fever, hunger, or trench rot. Perhaps armies themselves might shrink, and the world's suffering with them. The Civil War's thunder shook Gatling's convictions into action. In his Indianapolis workshop, surrounded by the hiss of steam engines and the clatter of gears, he began to sketch by lamplight a weapon that drew on everything he had learned. About farming, about medicine, about machines that never tired. Not to glorify war, but to render it obsolete. In a nation remade by industry, Gatling imagined a machine that might, by its terrible efficiency, force peace upon a blood-soaked land. On November 4th, 1862, Richard Gatling filed a patent that would reshape the machinery of war. His invention centered on 6 rifled barrels, arranged in a tight circle and fixed to a central shaft. Turning the hand crank set the entire cluster spinning, each barrel advancing through a cycle of loading, firing, and cooling. The heart of the design was a cam track, machined with precision, that controlled the firing pins. As a barrel aligned with the firing position, the cam pressed the pin forward, igniting the primer and sending a bullet downrange. Spent cartridges dropped away, gravity clearing the path for the next round. Above, a drum magazine fed cartridges into the breech by weight alone. No springs, no fragile parts, just the steady pull of gravity and the rhythm of the crank. Gatling's blueprint claimed a firing rate between 200 and 300 rounds per minute, a leap in firepower when most riflemen managed 3 shots in the same time. The rotating barrels cooled between volleys, avoiding the overheating that plagued earlier repeaters. Every detail was engineered for reliability, from the robust gears to the simple feed system. The whole assembly weighed about 250 pounds and could be mounted on a wheeled carriage, ready for a small crew to move into position. In the patent drawings, the logic of industry met the demands of battle. Gatling transformed the lessons of the factory floor into a weapon powered by human muscle and mechanical timing. What began as an abstract idea now existed as a tangible, whirring machine, primed for the battlefield. In the winter of 1862, the first Gatling guns arrived at the Washington arsenal. Ordnance Board officers watched as engineers cranked the weapon, sending nearly 200 rounds per minute downrange, a rate unmatched by any rifle squad. Trial records noted the gun's rapid fire, but also logged barrel heat and the sharp odor of burnt powder filling the hall. Misfires broke the rhythm, each one a sign of mechanical limits. The board's clerks questioned whether supply trains could keep up with such ammunition demands, or if a 200-pound gun could move with infantry across muddy fields. Most of all, they wondered if a weapon built for continuous fire fit an army trained for volley fire and bayonet charges. The final report captured both the gun's promise and its problems: high cost, logistical strain, and a mismatch with doctrine. Officially, the Gatling was not adopted. Still, the board's rejection did little to stop rumors among field commanders, some of whom saw potential, others refused to acknowledge. May 14th, 1864. The Union line at Bermuda Hundred braced for another Confederate assault. In the gray dawn, two squat, six-barreled machines sat atop a muddy rise, General Butler's secret purchase. 13 Gatling guns smuggled to the front against the Ordnance Board's wishes. Lieutenant James Requa and his crew stood by the crank, eyes fixed on the tree line. The enemy advanced, rifles flashing in ragged volleys. Then, for the first time in battle, the Gatling's hand wheel spun. Steel barrels blurred, spitting fire and lead at a rate no soldier had ever witnessed. 200 rounds tore through the morning, a sound more like a storm than musketry, continuous, unrelenting, mechanical. Confederate skirmishers faltered, then broke, leaving their dead in the churned earth. Union infantry surged forward, seizing 300 yards before the guns jammed and the ammunition ran low. The weapon's roar faded, replaced by stunned silence. Butler's men had seen the future, terrifying, impersonal, and unstoppable, if only for a moment. The old world of line and volley had met something new, and the memory of that thunder would linger long after the smoke cleared. Night fell heavy over the Union lines, but sleep was rare. Soldiers scribbled quick letters home, hands trembling, describing a new terror that haunted the trenches. One called it the whirring devil, a machine that filled the dark with a sound no man could mistake for musketry. The steady, mechanical roar left a mark deeper than any wound. Some wrote of the way the gun's rhythm seemed to echo in their bones long after the barrels cooled, an unbroken chain of noise and fear that lingered in the mind. Field medics faced a new kind of chaos. Where before they had braced for scattered rifle wounds, now they worked through the night, tending to injuries that shredded flesh and splintered bone. The usual tools, bandages, bone saws, and morphine were suddenly not enough. One overworked surgeon recorded in his log that the wounds from the rapid-fire gun were unlike any I have seen, requiring amputation in nearly every case. The tents overflowed, and the air grew thick with the smell of blood and burnt powder. Some men, even those unscathed, began to unravel. They startled at every clatter, flinched at sudden silence, and lay awake replaying the day's thunder in their minds. The letters home grew more anxious, words trailing off as if the writers could not find language for the fear that followed them. In the aftermath, the Gatling gun's legacy was written not only in the ground it helped seize, but in the invisible wounds it left behind, on bodies and on minds, unprepared for the new arithmetic of war. August 21st, 1866. The War Department issued its order. The Gatling gun would enter the official arsenal of the United States Army. In Hartford, Connecticut, the Colt factory's brick walls echoed with the clatter of metal on metal as skilled machinists turned Gatling's vision into reality. Rows of workbenches stretched beneath high windows, each man hunched over a gleaming barrel or gear, checking tolerances finer than the width of a human hair. The workforce, 200 strong, moved with a precision learned on revolvers, now applied to a weapon that demanded absolute reliability. Ledgers from the Colt archives show production ramping up, with finished guns rolling out to army depots by the dozen. Gatling himself, now an advisor, watched as his invention left the realm of prototypes and became a stock weapon, stamped with the U.S. Eagle. By 1870, the rights to his gun were sold outright to Colt, securing both fortune and mass production. The age of the hand-built wonder was over. The era of industrialized firepower had begun. The Gatling gun's influence spread far beyond American borders. Officers from Britain, Russia, the Ottoman Empire, and Japan traveled to Hartford, eager to study its mechanism and bring its power home. Colt's export records from the 1870s show a steady flow of shipments to these nations, each seeking to modernize their arsenals. In 1893, the Bruce feed system replaced the original drum, doubling the rate of fire with a box-style hopper and continuous metallic cartridge strips. Soon after, electric motors pushed the barrels to 3,000 rounds per minute. Among those inspired was Hiram Maxim, who reimagined the concept entirely. By 1884, his automatic gun emerged, tracing a direct line from Gatling's innovation to the future of warfare. Industry once forged tools for hope. On the battlefield, it forged something else: relentless, mechanized power. That legacy endures. Today, as technology accelerates, each innovation redraws the line between invention and devastation. The moment firepower became industry's child still defines every conflict. The question: who shapes that future now?